The views, information, or opinions expressed during the Cult for the Culture podcast are solely those of the individuals involved. The content presented is not a substitute for seeking or seeing a licensed mental health professional.
Know what's up next, know what's up next. Healthy pleasure with it, coping for the culture. Better tune in, better tune in. Big sis, get 'em, big sis, get 'em. Coping for the culture, coping for the culture. Coping for the culture, coping for the culture. Coping for the culture, coping for the culture. Coping for the culture, cope.
Hey, y'all, and welcome to the Cult for the Culture podcast. I am your host, Tiana Renee, the Culture's Advocate. On this show, we interview individuals from different walks of life who are dedicated to being the change within the culture as it relates to various topics and their effects on the world of mental health. Today's show is about mental health and creative spaces, and I have two very special guests. The first guest actually created my logo for my business, Healthy Pleasures, that I've told y'all about. The second is my brother, who created the intro that y'all hear every time that y'all log into the podcast. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Christian Sherrod, aka Hef the God, and Todgi Dozier with The Black Onion to the Cult for the Culture podcast. Hey, y'all, welcome.
Hey.
So let the world know a little bit about yourselves, or the audience rather. Ladies first.
Okay, so I'm Todgi. I own the company The Black Onion, which is a visual artist company. I started in 2016, February 2016. So that's been my sole full-time job for 3 years. 28, I have a birthday coming up soon. I'll be 29 soon. I went to North Carolina A&T for undergrad and NC State for grad school.
Hef the God.
My name is Chris, stage name Hef the God, recording artist, producer, beat maker, audio engineer, based out of Durham, North Carolina. I went to school in Florida, First Institute for audio engineering. I've been doing music since I was like 12 years old.
Before we get too deep into the conversation, I always like to start the podcast with, self-care and all that good stuff, because y'all know I'm all about that. So what do y'all do to kind of like prioritize yourselves and take care of yourself?
I do a lot of self-reflection. I spend a lot of time in nature. I make sure I'm always reading different things, just reading and trying to learn.
I do a lot of self-reflection as well. I do a lot of meditating with music. That's usually my go-to. It's calming for me.
I'm a music person too, and a self-reflection person, but y'all know that. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the topic. So a lot of the episodes I've been doing, we've of course been talking about mental health as it relates to different things, like specific topics or specific people. But one of the things that we haven't really spent a lot of time on is actually coping, because we are Cult for the Culture podcast. I consider myself creative. I know these two consider themselves creatives too. And so I really wanted the opportunity to give the audience a different perspective of how they can prioritize themselves and take care of themselves outside of the norm of what we all say self-care is. So how did y'all get into like your current creative space, the niche that y'all have? Like, what was that process like where you're like, Todgi, you said you've been doing it for 3 years, but I know you've been drawing way longer than that. So like, when, for the both of you guys, did you decide like, this is the thing for me, this is like what really works?
I would say right when I got out of high school, it's like I didn't take music too seriously until then. And then I got out of high school and it was like stuff started picking up for me. I wasn't even really trying. I started getting shows and stuff. So it started picking up and I'm like, all right, then I can take this serious. So it's like, all right, let's go to school for it. Let's learn how to make it, and you can be able to do most of the stuff yourself. You don't have to depend on a lot of people.
Okay.
I think I could always draw. And when I was younger, I told my mom I wanted to be an artist. And she was like, let's choose something that's feasible or that can be your fallback plan or as a hobby or something. I'm like, okay. So I went to school for landscape architecture for grad and undergrad. And after school was over, I'm like, okay, well, where are the jobs? I have 2 degrees now. What's up? While I was in grad school, people would have me doing different projects. I've always been creative. So can I get a shirt, Todgi? Can I get a hat designed for myself?
Right.
Can I get a painting for my family's 30th year anniversary? All right, yeah, cool. So after grad school, people kept asking me more. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I want to paint on the side, but, where's the job? Because that's what I went to school for. So, I kept getting no's, like literally every day I get a ton of no's. But at the same time, I was getting more inquiries for art.
When you say no, are you like job-wise or?
Yeah, job-wise.
Okay.
So things kind of were falling into my lap like really rapidly. So it's like, well, let me try to pursue this. So at the same time, I was getting pretty fed up with my current job. I was a manager, a shift manager, and a waitress. And it was just really stressful. So it's like, let me just pursue this. Let me just try it and see what happens then.
And you brought up a good point when you were mentioning like you knew that you wanted to do art, but it wasn't necessarily what was encouraged for you to be like your main thing. It was like, okay, yeah, you can do that, but which I think we find a lot with our parents. You got to go to college. You got to do this. And it's like, it's 2019 now. We're at a point where everybody is using their creative talents. They're doing what they want to do to accomplish what they want to accomplish in life. And so now it's not like a big deal if you leave your full-time job. Granted, I ain't there yet, but one day I want to be like, all right, it's whatever. This is what I'm going to do full-time. But we don't always get that encouragement. At least I don't feel like we always do. So how do y'all feel like that the culture as a whole, especially our culture, Black and minority, because I know specifically for our culture, a lot of the times we push making sure that we're successful, making sure that we have something to fall back on. We don't have the same resources. So do this first, even if it's not necessarily what you want to do. Because I can't count how many people go to college and then actually don't follow through with, like, I think I'm an exception to the rule, but that's not always the case. So how do y'all feel like the culture embraces that now as far as being creative, do what you want to do, and go from there?
I feel like now we're at the turn of events. Like, I feel like now is the time where it's being more acceptable. In our generation growing up, no. It was, oh, that's cool, you can do that. But yeah, go get a college degree still. Right. And for the most part, it was like you coming out in debt, not doing what you went to college for, and you end up doing something that you really did love and you wanted to do, and now you're actually successful at it. Mm-hmm. So now it's like one of the good things from social media that I can say is that it's helping it be more acceptable. More people are chasing their dreams more than following what they feel like the blueprint of life is supposed to be. Mm-hmm. So, and making that step and reaching out actually works for a lot of people.
I think like the whole narrative has changed. Growing up, our parents didn't have the internet in their pocket, basically.
Dial up.
It's just easier. It's easier and harder in the same sense because not everybody got to go to college. All right, if you didn't go to college, that meant you'll basically be working at home or not moving out of your city or whatever. You get to go to college, you're pretty much guaranteed a job somewhere. Even if it's not in your field, you're going to college to get a job. Now people don't really want to work because you don't have to work. There are other niches to do because you have the internet in your pocket. Mm-hmm. So I think we have more opportunities. The whole thing is really, the script has changed. We don't have to necessarily stick to the script anymore.
Right. Which I think is a good thing because I think it hinders, like, creativity a lot of times is like put on the back burner for people and they're not able to like reach their full potential. I'll say that. Because if you feel like you're put in a space where you have to do this, you have to do that, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm doing this, but I'm doing it because I have to and not necessarily because this is what I'm passionate about. Like, I can't tell y'all how many jobs I've had and it's just like, you know what? Like, I could leave today. I mean, I can't financially leave today, but if I had the opportunity, I'd be out today.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's like the mental health portion of being stuck in a place that you don't want to be and can't really get to the things that you're doing. Like, on the side, you're making music, you're doing this, or you're drawing and you're doing stuff for people occasionally. But it's like, this is what I want to do full time, but nobody's really embracing it. Nobody's really saying, go ahead, step out, do it. It's like, all right, you got to make sure that you have this, and this, because, okay, if you do this, how you going to pay for life? How you going to pay for this? And it's like, okay, yeah, I get it. And I'm not saying like still to have something to fall back on. So if things don't go right, you can still make it. But at the same time, what do y'all feel like that impact has been on for y'all and y'all creative abilities to be able to step out and say, this is what I want to do, period?
For me, it was a depressing time. I didn't even really want to make music because I couldn't make time for it to actually do the music because I was so worried about doing something I really didn't want to do. So it was kind of depressing. I felt like I was wasting time actually working towards something I didn't want to work towards. When I had this over here that I did want to work towards, and I couldn't even get to it because I didn't have the time.
It was scary, and like Christian said, it was really depressing. Work was just a lot, and I was like, why isn't this working out? This is what they told me I'm supposed to be doing. You go to work, and you make your money, and then you go home, and then you do it again the next day. But you're not supposed to be sad while you're doing that. You're not supposed to be upset. So while I'm trying to balance, okay, real adult things versus pursuing my hobby, look, this is not working.
Right.
So let me try something else, even if it is extremely scary and I don't know what I'm going to necessarily do. What I'm doing right now isn't working. So let me try something new.
And y'all have gotten many opportunities too. Like, I just know, Todgi, you've been on the Shade Room. You've been on different platforms where like your work has gone viral, not only for just like, us in North Carolina, but now it's like for the world to see. And you opening up for people, you doing shows, you're making music, you're producing stuff. And it's like, if you weren't ever able to do that, like what would that look like for y'all? Like what would life be if it was like, because I know at least for you, Chris, I know that this is the way that you cope. Like music is your thing. Music is a thing that gets you through on a day-to-day.
Yeah.
Todgi, is that the same for you with like art?
Yeah, I think so. Or just having the ability to be creative or express myself in other ways just besides words or, typical conversations.
Yeah.
Not typical, but conversations.
Right. So how do y'all feel like it would be like now that y'all are in the space where you can use it? Like what would it be like, do y'all feel like, if y'all weren't able to cross the threshold? Because most people don't. Most people stay in the space where it's like, this is what I have to do. And you're right, it is sometimes depressing and stressful and you're trying to make ends meet because we're all adults now and nobody really told us that this is what adulthood was going to be like. It's just like we woke up one day and it's like, oh, this is it. Because I know for me, like being an adult, having a full-time job, doing things, like my anxiety has, and I talk about it all the time, had just like picked up tremendously. And I'm like, where did this come from? Like, I don't feel like I always had anxiety for like stuff that's probably frivolous, stuff that will probably never happen.
Yeah.
Just making up thoughts in my head. Like, you know that personally, Chris, but at the same time, it's like now I have responsibilities. Now I have to make sure I have somewhere to live. I have a car payment. I have a cell phone bill. I have all of these things.
Yeah, on top of that.
On top of like the stuff that I'm already making up in my head. So like, I know that that's picked up as an adult, but I can only imagine it because I'm passionate about what I do. Like, I love doing therapy. I love working with people. I love knowing that I'm the threshold that's going to help change lives. That means a lot to me. So even on the days that I'm stressed out, I'm like, man, look how many people that you've helped. But I can only imagine if I was still at Outback. Like when I first graduated from grad school, I had a job that paid, but I only literally got paid if I went and the person was actually present for the session. Like if they cancel, I didn't get paid. So that was a struggle for me. So I had to go to Outback and I was angry, like every single weekend, angry. I'm working lunch shift, dinner shift every single weekend. And it was a point for me where it was just like, I cannot do this. Like I'm literally angry every time I wake up and go to the job on the weekends. And for a long time, that put me in a space where it's like, I don't know. Like, I know I'm not getting along with the people around me. I know they feel some type of way about me right now.
Yeah, you get into that state.
Right, you get into that state where so it's like being able to have a space where you can do that.
I couldn't imagine without it. It's like devastating. Like,
yeah.
To a point where I don't know if I could find something that was equal or close to the value of what I do to me. I don't think I could.
I mean, I think if you don't find your outlet some way, I feel like that's how people turn to other ways to self-medicate or self-cope, unhealthy ways. So I can't imagine not having a creative outlet.
Like, I'm looking at both of y'all faces right now, and y'all are like, no, like, it's literally hard for y'all to even fathom it. And, like, even for this, with me doing the podcast, like, it's something that I wanted to do, but didn't know the resources, didn't know how to, like, even step into that realm. And then given the opportunity, it's like, okay, cool, I can do this. And as anxious as I am every time that I press record, it's like, but still, like, imagine the impact that this is going to have on people. Imagine how people are going to hear. Like, you have different guests who are from all different walks of life. They're all doing something different, but the narrative is the same. The theme is the same. Like, people want to get better. People want to feel understood. People want to feel like they have other people who can identify with what they're doing. And so for me, it's like, great, I can do that. But I know that there's so many people out there right now who are stuck in a place where they're just working because they have to work. Or even if they're not working age, they're still trying to, like, let's think school age.
Yeah.
They're trying to get out of their parents' house. They're trying to make sure that they have what their parents are telling them that are necessary. But it brings me back to the question of, I know I asked earlier and we talked a little bit about this, but how do you feel like the culture really embraces it? Or what can we do differently that allow people who use creative spaces as a way to cope? Like, how can we change that narrative so it doesn't make people feel like if you want to be something outside of the norm, that you're not setting yourself up to fail, so to speak?
What I would say is you just got to invest the time in it. Like, it takes 10,000 hours to master something. If you put the time into it, from there, you're going to start getting better at it eventually. And then you'll get better and better and better. And as long as you're moving around and doing what you're supposed to be doing as far as what field you're in and networking and doing all of the things that you need to do to push your brand or whatever you're trying to do, you're going to be successful. It's all about you. Like, it's all going to start there, and then that starts with, like, at the house and with yourself and your mind and your health and everything. You just got to keep pushing.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you got to work the job, like, if the job is necessary, like, I understand, like, women with 2 kids and they're a single mother and it's like, I have to work a job, but I do want to do this. Like, you're just going to have to prioritize and make the time and, like, make the proper steps so that you can be able to do both. Eventually lose the one that you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then just do the one that you are trying to do, whatever field you want to go into. That's really it, man. Just keep pushing, stay focused. I mean, like, that was my main problem. Like, I wasn't focused enough on music. Like, I was doing music and it was going good for me, but it was like a lot of other things were going good. Now it's like I'm older and I'm like, all right, I have to focus on this one thing and just try to be good in this, because there's multiple things that I could do in this one thing. Instead of me trying to just go out and do everything, let me just focus on this. And when I did that, and it was like, I went cold turkey, like, no job, just like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead straight into this. Like, I got to make it happen. Like, I got to make it work. And I, like, spent countless hours and days perfecting and learning stuff and teaching myself things. And from there, it just got me to a point where, like, I'm networking and stuff is picking up for me now.
Yeah. Yeah, you always got to have a plan. And by any means, I am not endorsing just leaving without a plan, because I don't want anybody to say. I listened to the episode with Tiana and she said, just drop everything and pursue my dream. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying being smart about it. But also, like, not even just from that. I think the main message that I want to get, even from y'all listening to Chris and Todgi and myself, is being open to knowing that there are alternative ways to cope that may not fall in the norm of what people say. Like, yeah, therapy is great and I'm all for it. I told you I'm in therapy myself and I know many people that are in therapy, which is great. But I also know that outside of that 1 hour a week or 1 hour every other week, when you see your therapist, you still have to have other ways to manage yourself and to get you to a place where you can still go day to day and not completely break down. And that's not to say that you aren't going to have days where you feel like the world is crashing, because that's not realistic and that's not life. But if you have certain things such as creative spaces to manage and deal with it, I think it does make life more easier. I'll say that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Like, and you can find something else too. Like, try dancing. Like, go out and do something you never did before, like salsa dancing or,
Salsa dancing.
Yeah.
I remember that when you be like, oh, you want to do something? Yeah, let's go salsa dancing.
So, like, yeah, man, like, it might make you feel good. I go out and just try some new stuff, and, like, sometimes you feel good about it. Sometimes it's whack.
Yeah. You're like, I wasted my time. I should never came here.
But then you can laugh about it and it's like, all right, I had a good time afterwards.
Right, I tried something.
Yeah, I tried something. So it's like, just get out and do stuff. And the in between,
Yeah.
when you can find time, but try to find time, because, like, I'm big on that, like, not finding time, because I'm always trying to work. I have to find time, and I, like, had to figure out the hard way, like, how that affects people around me. So, and myself as well.
Mm-hmm.
You just gotta find time, try to do something different, or just do a you day, Where it's just you, nobody else.
Yeah.
Just chill out, meditate.
Mind your business. Yeah. Don't worry about anybody else's business. I'm for real. It's a day when you can just sit back and you don't have to worry about nobody but yourself. And I'm getting to the point now too, and I think I talked about this on one of the other episodes. It's like I've gotten to the point where I'm okay with not feeling bad if I start to tune out. It was one point in my life where if people called me, I felt like I had to call them right back or answer right then or text right then. But it's now like I kind of just need to be in my own head because y'all don't even understand. I told y'all about my anxiety. Well, y'all, when I say this anxiety stuff is real for me, it's real. But just being able to check out and have that space. And I like to do things too. I like to upholster furniture or make little crafts just for no reason or just because I feel like for a while I was knitting. Y'all remember that? Yeah. Knitting and crocheting. But that was good for me. Like it was just something where in that moment I didn't have to do anything. And yeah, it was like a little hustle for a minute, but really it was just something that allowed me to step out and not really focus on everything that was going on. Because you can get lost in crocheting. And I know it sounds like, oh, you a nerd, you're a grandma, whatever. I was crocheting. I was making bathing suit tops. I was making crop tops. I was making hats, scarves, whatever. But for me, it was like in that moment, I had something to do where it took my mind off of everything that was going on in life. Because at that time, I was in grad school. And grad school was a very stressful time. Me and Todgi got really close when I was in grad school. So it was like a lot happened in that one span of 2 years. So just being able to have those outlets and focus on things outside of yourself, which brings me to like my next question for y'all, if y'all are comfortable sharing, but like, how do you feel that having those creative spaces has helped you manage life? Because I know you said for you, Chris, like it was at one point, I think you said it too, Todgi, at one point it's like depressing for y'all, like dealing with depression and some of the other things that came along with that. So how do y'all feel that being able to be in that creative space and embracing it despite other people maybe not, how has that helped y'all? Like, how is life different now?
For me, I'm happier doing what I'm doing. Like, I worked at warehouses. I worked everywhere. Restaurants, warehouses, construction. I did it all. But I was never, like, happy to go to work. It was never like, all right, yeah, I'm happy to go in and I'm happy when I'm leaving. No, it was never that. Like, I might be all right when I'm going in. I might be pissed when I leave. It was, it was never... You were never going to know what it was going to be like. Now it's like I go to work and it's like I'm happy. I get to go to work. I get to play with a bunch of audio stuff, which I do all day, every day. Then I get to watch a band or hear somebody speak or watch a comedy show, and then it's over and I just take the stuff down and then I get paid too. Right. So it's like win, win, win.
Right. This is a package deal. You working, but also.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I'm getting to do what I love to do. I'm getting to see something cool, something new. And I'm getting paid on the back end. So it's like, all right, yeah, I'm happy to go to work. So I don't want to do anything else. Yeah. So it's like, I'm just striving hard to get further into this field. It's working out pretty good for me. And I feel more complete when I do go to work,
Yeah.
You feel broken and like a little, little something lost inside when you're doing something you really don't want to do.
Yeah.
It's like, I really don't want to be here. Oh, I really don't want to deal with him.
Yeah, because you have to muster up the strength.
Yeah.
Like, think about having conversations that you don't want to have. Like, the amount of, like, feelings that you have about that and what goes into that and the thoughts that come along with that. Like, I really don't like my supervisor and I have to go to work today. And then they say something to you and it's like, oh, I could really just, like, do X, Y, and Z, but I can't do that because I need my job, or I can't do that because this is how I'm making sure that I'm straight. So I can only imagine. What about you, Todgi?
I mean, not to sound cliche or anything like that, but I feel like I'm actually in charge of my life. And
yes, in charge.
Like, it may be like hard stuff sometimes, or this is a problem. But you know what? I created this problem because I put myself in the situation. So that means I can get myself out of the situation. Mm-hmm. Or, okay, you did great today, so let's push ourselves to do better. It's just like, I don't have to, besides my customers, I don't have to answer to anybody. It's like, okay, sometimes I do have to do stuff I don't want to do, but it's not like, hey, F this job because it's my job. I actually created it. I crafted it. If I don't like something, I can change it. Mm-hmm. I don't have to have anybody supervising over me. And I think I really enjoy that. I just like having it's like genuine freedom.
Yeah. And I feel that because I'm all about autonomy and I struggle with people telling me what to do sometimes and I have to check myself about that. But it is good to be in a space where you can make all your decisions. And like, not even just that, I think there's so much that you learn about yourself when you put yourself in a place where you're making your own decisions. You're in a place where you can do what you want to do. You're in a place where you are making things happen. Like I said earlier, everybody doesn't get that opportunity. So there is a lot of freedom in that, but I also think there's a lot of self-discovery too with that, because it's a lot of it's a learning curve. We don't get a book when we sit down or when we grow up. Like we get the basics of, yeah, do this, don't do this. Go to school, don't do that. But we don't, like, I would love the book. I feel like maybe we should write one and so the next generation will be all right.
Yeah.
But, and this is why, I wanted to start the podcast too, because I know within our culture, there are a lot of missing pieces, and we carry on things from generation to generation, and we don't consider how times are changing, people are changing. And so I know, I really feel like we need to have more conversations around that. What is the conversation do you feel like it was like for you? I know earlier, Taja, you said that your mom told you that you had to do certain things, and we grew up in the same house, Chris, so I know what our conversations were. But just for the audience, like, what do you feel like would have been more beneficial for you coming up that would have put you in a space where you wouldn't have had to turn to unhealthy habits? You would have known from the beginning, like, this is how I cope and this is how I manage life.
I feel like being surrounded with more people who didn't depend so much on their jobs, or that were so much bound by being able to do things based on finances. We didn't really hang out with people that just, didn't go to work or anything like that. So it's kind of like being ingrained in you you have to work. You don't have time for this.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like if I would have seen more, oh, you actually do get time to relax. You don't have to wait until after you're 40 or 50 to actually start enjoying life. I feel like if I would have seen more people, I mean, I had like classmates and stuff and be like, yeah, we're going on vacation this week. So, they won't be here Monday and Tuesday. I'm like, what? Vacation? And I feel like if I would have been surrounded or been brought up around more people like that, even if my mom would have been brought up around more people who didn't work like 24/7, then I feel like the whole narrative would have changed for the rest of my life, at least a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, because I think, or I know rather, a lot of the things that we pick up, even if they aren't said, we see them. And so we learn that. Like I was just watching, I don't know if y'all watch Pastor Michael Todd, but I was just watching the sermon that he has now around, the first episode was like daddy issues, but he was just saying essentially like, even if nobody sat down and told you this, you watched either your mom or dad struggle, you watched them do this, you watched them come home from work and look completely exhausted and still cook dinners, do this and do that, but not really prioritize themselves. And I know for us, me and Chris growing up, our mom was a single mom, and we did watch that, and we did see like her do whatever it took to make sure that she could create the life that she felt like we needed to live. But at the same time, as I get older, as I get deeper into the field, as I get stronger as a clinician and a therapist, I come more to the realization of like, she really sacrificed a lot for us, most importantly, herself. And so it's like, we create these narratives, and it's not that we're doing anything wrong necessarily, but we're just cycling what we know. And I really want us as a culture to get to a place where we're stepping outside of that. Like, yeah, that's how it was from 1930 to 1990, but okay, it's 2019 now. What are we going to do different?
We got to change. We got to change the script. It's up to us now, and for the next generation, what they're going to do is depending on how we perceive what we're doing to them. We got to lead by example. And that's basically what it's going to be. Because, like, we looked up to our parents, like, regardless of the fact of the nature of anything, you would look up to your parents.
Yeah, that was our model.
Yeah, that was your model. So it's like you're going to basically do what they did, and then you're going to pick up things along the way, and that's going to vary from what they did a little bit. But for the most part, you're molded from your parents. To me, it's like we're just growing as a people generation by generation, because before then it was worse than that and worse than that. So it's like we're getting there, but it's just a process.
Yeah. And we also have to consider too, like what the differences were. Like we have to consider things like slavery, which was a long time ago, but actually not even that long. Slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, all these different things, civil rights movement. There are a lot of different things that I know went into the nature of how we operate now. And I can't take that out of the picture and act like that doesn't exist. And that isn't the reason why we just go so hard now, because we're looking for recognition. We're looking for getting what we deserve. We're looking for even being like just accepted as a people in general.
Because our parents at our age, they were strict. It was, go to college.
Yeah, that's it.
Go to college and get a job.
Yeah.
Or a trade.
Like you figure something out. Because really college, like to get into college, and this is kind of where the HBCU thing came around. It's like, this is a space for us to make sure that we can do what we need to do so that we can get on the same playing field, even close, which granted, we weren't. Like it took a long time for us to get the recognition of who we are and the greatness that comes with who we are. But I can't take away from the fact that was an issue at one point. And not to say, that's why I keep saying, like, it's not to say that anybody did anything wrong. It's not an issue of right and wrong. It's a thing of like, we're learning as we go. And we're dealing with some of the same issues, but now we have a lot more resources. Now we have a lot more, like, we're protesting still.
Yeah,
we're
vocal now.
We're very vocal now. Like,
very vocal.
Being creative or being a creative is not just about like doing art or doing music or crocheting or whatever the case may be. It's a lot more than that now. And we do have a voice. And even that, I feel like, is a way to cope because you're standing up for yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, it's cool. Like, a lot of stuff that wasn't cool is cool now.
Like what?
Like stuff I used to get picked on about, growing up, or like even as I got older and I clinged on to things still.
Like what?
Like anything, like anime, stuff like that.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
And now it's like stuff like that, like being a little more what they would call geekish or nerdish, or being a little more acceptable. Like to dye your hair is a little more acceptable. Like I used to do weird stuff like that when I was a kid.
Like your hair blonde right now, mine is pink. Like that's okay now. Whereas before it's like, you can't come to work like that.
Yeah, but like, and I always do stuff like that. And people be like, what? Like, what's wrong with him? Like, and now
you have definitely always been your own person.
Yeah, and then now everybody is more acceptable, and then to me it's cool now because it's like that's what's up. Like I'm mad, like dang, I had to go through all that, and now it's cool for y'all.
But you was a trailblazer.
But it's like it's like it's cool now. Like that's what's up. So it's really getting there to a turn towards going to be like people are going to be more independent and stuff like that. And we just got to keep pushing. It's really with the mental health care and stuff like that has been on a really strong push, especially in our community. Like we got a lot of people, our community that's pushing this very hard, and it's like it's good, like especially for Black male.
Yes, I can only imagine like 20. Let's say, I'll give it 2024. That's a long time, right? That's 5 years. Because even down to like looking on social media and kids now. Like some of the stuff they're doing. Like I remember what I looked like as a kid, okay? I had bow rats in my hair and plaits and all this stuff. And now like the kids are really embracing, and I know sometimes it may be like, oh, that's a little grown. But in the same sense, like people are being more open to being themselves and that be okay and not to be judged for it. Not to say that we're not judgy, because we are judgy as a culture. And that's one thing I would love for us to completely change the narrative about. But I know also that's something that's been ingrained in us to not operate together.
Yeah. I was just talking about this the other day, like, and this was with my boss, and I'm like, you guys are so conflictive. Like, you guys just like conflict. Like, your generation is very conflictive. Like,
meaning what?
Like, that we like conflict. Like, we're aggressive in nature, like our generation. And I'm like, look what we grew up around. Look whatever we grew up in. Like, they were crashing planes into buildings.
Right.
On our territory, like in America, like it was crashing planes into big buildings and people was dying. This was happening, and war. Like this is what we grew up. Like we've been at war
forever. Right.
Like we've been at war our whole.
I've never thought about that.
Now.
Yeah.
Like, so we've always been in a conflictive nature. It was always been a conflictive environment because when you turn on the news, it's like, all right, these guys, all right. So it's like
we have a situation.
Yeah,
right.
These dudes are shooting in our neighborhood. Our family over there is shooting in another country at another entity. then we got conflict over here. Our government's always been in shambles. And
Right.
crazy stuff has been going on and scandals and stuff like that. So we grew up in a conflicted environment.
Yeah.
So what did you expect?
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen?
Yeah.
Like in the civil rights, they grew up in a conflicted environment.
So they was ready.
Yeah. They had to go through what they had to go through. And it's like now, it's like we're doing the same thing just on a different level.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, all right, we kind of got the recognition, or we're kind of up there. They like, all right, they here though.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, we ain't letting them in, but like they up there now.
Right.
They here.
Oh, these millennials.
We got the Jay-Z's and we got the people who are really taking a step forward to be like, all right, no, we're going to capitalize and our community going to capitalize for our people.
I definitely think we're at the point in time now where our voices are being heard and we're embracing creativity, we're embracing uniqueness, we're embracing differences. Like we protest for everything. That's literally, you can turn on the news any given day, turn on social media any given day. I mean, down to clothing brands that we probably will never wear ever in our lives. But it's like any wrongdoing or anything that makes people feel like they can't be who they are. We're like, nah.
Can't wear Gucci.
We're not doing that. We're not doing that. And that makes me happy because it's like, granted, we still have so much further to go. But I do think we're at a point now where it is being embraced more. Like bullying is being more talked about now. Like it's not okay to, like I heard you say earlier, you were picked on for watching anime. I probably was one of the people that picked on you. Like, why are you watching this?
Yeah.
But still, like we're at a place now where it's like somebody you don't even know would be willing to step before you and say, hey, like what's wrong? Why does it have to be that way? It doesn't have to be that way. So I definitely think we're at a point where it is better.
I mean, I think even if it's not even conflictive, I think people are just more for standing up for what's right.
Mm-hmm.
Like back in the day, even slavery's bad. It's like a couple people are being like, why are we even doing this? Don't worry about it. You can come hide out in my house.
Right.
Cool.
We'll do the Underground Railroad.
So I feel like people are just standing up for themselves more in this generation. It's like, this doesn't even make sense. Why are we doing this?
Mm-hmm.
I actually you're not the only person I need right now. I can find another job. I'm not standing up for something. Like life is too short to be standing up for stuff that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah. I wonder what it would be like if like the attitude that we have right now, if we had it back like Jim Crow, slavery, like what it would be like. Like, nah, we not doing this. Like, I probably wouldn't be alive. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm very outspoken. But I'm just saying like the mentality that we have now to embrace who we are or just embrace people in general and stand up and say, this is right, this is wrong. We should be doing it this way. This is how we change the narrative. Like if we had more of that, I wonder if like it would even be a situation where slavery was a thing. And that may be far-fetched, but.
If they had stood up, because the creativity was there. Like,
oh yeah, we created a lot as people.
Especially throughout that time, like jazz, all that stuff that was going on, man. Like that
Out of Pain, yeah,
that was big, and that was like their way of their coping. You had great artists came out of that time.
Mm-hmm.
You had a lot of good stuff coming out of that time. Inventions, people doing things.
The cotton gin to make it easier for us, so we ain't gotta pick like.
Like, there was a lot of stuff that came throughout that time where we was down, but we was broken as a people.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like. We was taken away from our homes, and this had to happen, and we was somebody's property now. So it's like they had to get up out of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you go down in depression, it's like you get depressed, and then you got to come up out of it. So like the depression was them getting over here, and then it was like they had no way to fight back.
Mm-hmm. They had to figure it out.
Or they didn't feel like they had a way to fight back. They always had a way to fight back because they was bringing more slaves over here than it was them.
Yeah, but even still, like you have to consider what the mentality was to know that a group of people that you never seen in your life came over, took you over, put you in a boat, shackled you, changed you, and brought you over here. Like that would break anybody. So I know it would break mine. So to be in a place, you're right, where you had to build back up. And I guess now, 2019 and on, it's just the time space that we're coming back from, because we've always been creative. I'm not going to say that we have not. Like we make up dances, we invent things, we make groundbreaking news in medicine. Like we've been doing all these things for so long, but we don't get the recognition.
And until it could get big enough that we get the real recognition, it's going to remain like that.
I feel like we could run it too. I mean, it's going to take some time for that mentality to switch, but I definitely think that we're in the right space. Okay. So if y'all could give one piece of advice to people right now who are struggling, like they're in their creative space, they're doing that, that's how they cope, but the environment around them doesn't support that. What advice would y'all give them? Because like we said, for y'all, this has been instrumental to y'all being able to function as people, is to be who you are and to be able to use this as a coping skill and manage your mental health. And we know everybody doesn't get that opportunity.
Find somewhere where you can do it. Like, network with some people that's doing what you want to do. And like, people see you working towards something, they're gonna help you out. So like, if you just try to find somebody doing what you're doing, then you'll find a space where you'll be able to do that. Like, you'll find some time, like you'll make time for the things that you want to do. And like, once you get to that point, just make sure that you find time for yourself as well as what you're trying to
do. I would say, don't let anybody define or try to dictate what your coping mechanism is, because it's literally for you. Be open to suggestions, changes, things that may make you better, or people who have been successful in, that niche or that market or whatever. But don't let anybody define what that is for you. It shouldn't end up being stressful or taken away from you, because it's supposed to be your outlet. And it's literally yours. It's your life, your mind, your dream. So don't let anybody define it for you. You have to do that for yourself.
That's facts from both of y'all, because the reality is, when you break down, can't nobody else help you get back up. I mean, they can support you, but there's a lot of stuff that you have to do internally to get back to the space to say, okay, I'm all right. Which brings me to my part of the episode that I like to call Let's Advocate. So if y'all could change one thing about the state of mental health, or give advice about the state of mental health within our culture right now, what would that be?
I say just listening to people. It takes a lot for people to cry out for help in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So when people actually do say something, it's not a joke, or it's not funny, or don't belittle the person, because you don't know how much strength they had to muster to say something in the first place.
I agree with that completely. What about you, Chris?
I say find a balance. Find a balance between the things you love, the thing you want to do, and don't be afraid to go see like a therapist or something, or talk to somebody. Like, that's big. A lot of us, especially if you're creative, like, we're introverts a lot. Like, we'll introvert ourselves into whatever our craft is. And we can kind of like zone out from the world from it. So just like try to find that balance and make sure you talk to people. Like, even if it's somebody you don't know, like, go talk to a homeless person.
Mm-hmm.
No matter. Sometimes it might work.
Sometimes I've had somebody tell me before that they use social media to talk to people that are kind of going through the same thing. They don't know these people, but they've reached out and gotten good responses from complete strangers.
And it's groups online, like, for everything. Like, it's like chat groups online for anything you want to look up. Like, you can look up whatever issue you're going through, or whatever craft or something you're in, or even a struggle or an ailment that you're in, like, and talk to people that's similar to you that is going through the same thing. You don't even have to know them. So it's like, you don't really care how they judge you, because you might not ever see this person
ever again.
And it's like anonymous.
Yeah. And that definitely takes a lot of strength. It's one thing to have strength to talk to people you know, a completely different level of strength to talk to people you have never met before in your life.
Exactly.
So that's definitely, and I'm glad you brought that up about that. There is a resource out there where you can have different groups or different things, even down to like, you can do therapy via text now, which I'm still a little weary about. But there are like different resources such as that, where you can reach out to somebody. We have hotlines that you can call. There are different ways that you can get your needs met, even if it doesn't include mustering up the strength maybe to go to a therapist or to talk to somebody else.
Yeah.
So I definitely think what both of y'all said is definitely something that will get us going in the right direction. So I really even just appreciate y'all for being open to the conversation, because I realize it required you guys to be transparent about your journeys as creatives and using that to cope and using that to kind of manage life. So I definitely appreciate y'all for that. And I want to give y'all the opportunity to share what y'all are doing currently, how people can reach you, because y'all are both working for yourselves at this point and doing things and using your creative talent as a way to cope. So how can people find y'all?
I'm at HEF_THA_GOD on Instagram. I have EP releasing soon, probably by the end of this month.
What's that on SoundCloud, iTunes?
All platforms.
Okay, but you have a SoundCloud currently.
Yeah, I have a SoundCloud. SoundCloud's helped with that as well.
Okay, that's exciting. What about you, Todgi?
I'll be participating in the Dreamville.
You are, yes. I saw that. That is so huge. Yeah. Dreamville is a concert, right?
Yeah, Dreamville's a concert in Raleigh. It'll have a couple headliners. I don't know who's still coming besides J. Cole, but hopefully we'll see him. But you can find me on Instagram, The Black Onion, Facebook, The Black Onion, or website www.theblackonion.com. I'm pretty transparent on social media. I like to be relatable. I like for people to know that, life doesn't have to be this perfect image or anything like that. So if you just want to laugh at life with me, I'm just Todgi on Instagram, on Facebook. Todgi Dozier.
Okay, guys. Well, thank y'all for tuning in to the Code for the Culture podcast. And I wish y'all all the success and things that y'all are doing right now. And I really appreciate y'all willing to be transparent and give the world a different insight into what it means to be a creative and how you can use that to cope. So definitely, I hope you guys enjoyed the show today. And I hope that y'all got something out of it from these two wonderful guests. And I will catch you guys the next time. Bye, y'all. For more information about the show, events, or if you have any questions, you can find us on Instagram at Healthy Pleasures Inc. and visit us at www.healthypleasuresinc.org.